Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the greatest recordings ever. And here's a surprise. This one should get you. It's Poulenc's Concerto Champêtre for harpsichord and orchestra, coupled to the Martinu harpsichord concerto, featuring Zuzana Růžičková, and the Czech Philharmonic, in the case of the Poulenc, conducted by that fabulous conductor of French fluff and Poulenciana, Kurt Sanderling. I'm not kidding. Whoa, baby, isn't that bizarre? Yes, Kurt Sanderling. And it's kind of interesting that this was actually made by Supraphon. How it happened, I really am curious to know, because Kurt Sanderling, of course, was Jewish, and so was Růžičková, who was a Holocaust survivor. And the Czech Philharmonic refused to allow her to play as long as Karel Ančerl was conductor, because they claimed, well, two Jews is one too many in the Czech Philharmonic. That's true. That's from her autobiography, which you really ought to read. It's one of the most gripping books about a musician ever, and I talked about it in my list of 10 fabulous essential books. But she was the first lady of the harpsichord after Wanda Landowska, and was also Jewish, by the way. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? I mean, I'm just making the point as a Jewish person myself. That kind of intrigues me. I find it fascinating. And so we have the Poulenc and Martinu harpsichord concertos. Now, the Martinu is written for a small ensemble, small string ensemble, and just a couple winds. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful work. And Růžičková's recording is the reference. It has been for like 100 years. And it's done with just the Prague Chamber Orchestra, I think, here, something like that, a small ensemble, the Prague Chamber Soloists, in fact. Now, this Supraphon recording is actually the Denon recording of it. See, the Japanese Denon Supraphon issue. See, that's how you know. I got, there was a clue there, all the Japanese lettering and stuff and all of that, which was a dead giveaway. What makes this recording so fabulous? Well, first of all, you have Růžičková herself, who was wonderful and who played. She was not a period instrument person, because when she was studying the harpsichord originally back in like the 1930s and 40s and whatnot, there were no period instruments, particularly not in Eastern Bloc countries, where the period instrument movement was late in coming. She had a modern harpsichord that had all kinds of zippy bells and whistles. And today, people complain that, well, she's not playing on an authentic instrument. And it's like, oh, that's such bullshit. A harpsichord's a harpsichord. You pull the thing, it goes twang, but it also had lots of stops and things so that it could make all kinds of interesting sounds. It had a wonderful selection of sonority, just as Wanda Landowska had, and which is what Poulenc wrote the piece for, by the way. So it's an authentic instrument for this kind of music, for composers who wrote for the harpsichord when it was the modern reincarnation of the old instrument, and not, a Rookers from 1626 or some sort of stuff like that. So we've got the right instrument for the works in question, number one. Number two, you have the Czech Philharmonic, which is one of the great orchestras for French repertoire. And they were a great orchestra for French repertoire after the French sound of French orchestras for, groups such as the Paris Conservatoire had ceased to exist in the mid-1960s. And, all the French orchestras were reorganized, and the Paris Conservatory Orchestra was disbanded, and the Orchestre de Paris was formed, with its first ever concert was like under Herbert von Karajan, somebody who was guaranteed not to have the right sonority for French music, or not the right sonority, but the echt sonority for French music. He had a sonority, of course, and it was lovely, but not that sonority. And so, they have this wonderful unblended sonority, which is exactly what Poulenc wants, by the way, because, his sound is based on woodwinds primarily, not strings. And, they have a wiry string timbre and an unblended basic sound, which balances. It balances beautifully, but you hear all of the elements of it distinctly. And so if you're doing something which requires rhythmic sharpness and a sort of etched with a highlighter kind of sound for all of the solos. I mean, it's just perfect. Absolutely perfect. Stravinsky-ian sound, if you want to say, because Stravinsky's orchestration was also very similar to Poulenc's. And then, to top it all off, you have Kurt Sanderling, who is no one's idea of somebody to conduct light, fluffy music, and who treats the piece as if it is, a sermon by Bach, just a very, very serious piece indeed. Now, Poulenc is very insouciant, but the insouciance occurs if you take it as seriously as you can possibly take it. Because then the disconcerting elements of the music, the collage in which, Mozart meets Parisian street music, meets Bach, meets, it all happens in the most vivid possible way. And he takes his time. He doesn't conduct it quickly. He doesn't whip through it in this neoclassical speed demon-y way that you often hear these days. So the result is an extraordinary performance. Now, this was also issued in a Supraphon 2 CD tribute to Růžičková set, which I think is still around. So you can get it a couple of ways, but you really need to hear it. This and the Martinu, which is charming in neoclassical confection. It really is. It's delicious. But the Poulenc particularly is just amazing. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.